And I looked and I saw something like a lion being roused, roaring out of the forest. I heard how he spoke in a human voice and said to the eagle, "Listen, you, and I will speak to you. The Most High says to you, aren't you the last of the four beasts that I made to rule in my world, so that I might bring about the end of my times through them? You, the fourth of those beasts that has come, conquered all the beasts that came before you, ruling over the world with much terror, and over the world with harsh oppression. You have lived in the world with deceit for so long. You judge the earth, but not in truth. For you have oppressed the humble, the meek, and injured those who caused you no harm. You have injured those who caused no unrest. You hated those who spoke the truth and loved liars. You even destroyed the dwellings of those who bore fruit and tore down the walls of those who had done you no harm. Your insolence has ascended to the Most High, and your pride to the Mighty One. The Most High has reviewed his times. Look, they are now finished, and his ages are complete. Therefore, eagle, you must utterly vanish, you and your terrifying wings, your dreadful little wings and your evil heads, and your dreadful talons, and all of your worthless body. Then the whole earth will be refreshed and restored, set free from your violence, and will hope for the judgment and mercy of him who made it. While the lion was saying these words to the eagle, I looked and saw that the head that had prevailed disappeared, and the two wings that had gone over to it and rose up so that they might rule, but their rule was weak and chaotic. I watched as they disappeared, and the whole body of the eagle was burnt. The earth was filled with fear. Now, what's interesting about this is the eagle. Now, these days, here in America in particular, and in Western civilization, when people think of the eagle, they generally think of the United States of America. But there are actually three eagles from a biblical point of view and historical point of view that are very, very important. There's the golden eagle of Europe and the Far East, which you would see in, say, the Holy Roman Empire. You see in the crest of the Russian Federation. There is the Islamic eagle of the Middle East, which is interesting. It's the eagle of Celadon. Now, that eagle is also of interesting perspective with its history, which is much like that of the golden eagle, which was also connected to Rome at one time, but also the Nazi Empire. Then there is what most people think of, the bald eagle, which actually has its ties to the veil of the temple in Jerusalem, representing one of the four faces on which each of the living creatures around the throne of heaven have. They have those four faces. Now it's interesting. The eagle spoken of in the above story that I just read to you earlier is an amalgam, a combination of the three made from those who are liars, lawless, and opposed to truth in love, bringing about actual justice and mercy from humble and contrite hearts. They actually are opposed to that, though their words would pretend differently. Now note how distorted the eagle's judgments are, and how wrong in administering justice it was. Now, when you think about this, you also have to think about the fact that there are generally there's a series of parallels that go on. So you've got a golden eagle, and you've got a bald eagle. You also have left and right wings. That's something that everybody around the world understands. Now, what's also interesting in the story I told you, it talks about a lion roaring out of the forest, coming out of the forest, and he spoke in a human voice and said to the eagle, which is a global construct, that it was under judgment for having judged wrongly. Now, it's a very curious thing. You've heard me say that when you want justice, I'm not saying you shouldn't want justice. I'm just saying that when you consider what justice is, justice will always begin with those who demand it and those who deserve it. Everybody comes to justice. So if you are demanding justice for others and unwilling to see your own injustices, you are actually pronouncing a curse upon yourself and a judgment upon yourself that will surely come. Words are important. Understanding them and understanding what they convey is even more important. Now, we live in a time where one side, one wing, has a problem with words being used by other people that they don't agree with. Yet they reserve the right to offend everybody else while they're trying to silence those people they're offending, yet claiming to be acting in justice, to be acting justly, and they are not. Justice comes for all, not some. It comes for all. And it will either bring humility, it will humble, or it will humiliate and crush. So, why am I telling you this story? Well, when I often bring up the binary simulacrum and the polarity, I'm speaking in terms of wings. Left wings, right? The left wing and the right wing. I am warning what the divisions, the pride, the lack of self-awareness, the lack of self-reflection and humility brings. But I'm not making a qualitative and quantitative judgment call on both. It's a fool's errand to try to force equivalence in outcomes and even in endeavors, in some cases, where justice is to be administered. You administer justice based upon the evidence. And the evidence is something that transcends what you may or may not like. It still will be rendered to each according to their deeds, and each according to the hearts and minds. Now that is beyond my personal pay grade. But yet, it's amazing how often, having grown up in America, so many people across the board thought themselves wise enough, insightful enough to project onto me their false authority to judge me and to judge my heart and mind. Thankfully, it didn't destroy me. And in the end, I would hope that they would be thankful that I forgave them for that and still forgive them for that. The question winds up being, why do you continue to do it? Why do you continue to do what you know in your heart is evil, is unjust? And I can tell you, the reason why you do it is pride. It's pride and it's deception and it's darkness. Now I can tell you that nothing that is dark on the inside has enough light to see past the darkness that is there to make a qualitative or quantitative assessment of even the surface of things outside of it. Much less the internal realities and condition of others. Yet this is exactly what the arrogant fools do. They tread down in the Tao of the fool and the tyrant a path which, having chosen a lie and exchanged the truth for it, become one with the darkness inside of them and ultimately united with the darkness of their shadow on the ground in the dust of the earth when they die. It is a pitiful existence. It's a sad existence. But yet it is what they chose. It is their right to choose a lie. It is their right to continue living that out and paying the consequences for it, both in the here and now and the hereafter. It is not their right to stand in the way of those who have not chosen a lie and are seeking the truth. But yet that's exactly what these fools do. And they do it at every level in society, all around the world. Which is why it is they want wealth, power, influence, and control, and always try to rule with fear and confusion. And fear being false evidence appearing real. They are at war against those who have not chosen to do them any harm. They are at war against the very things, the very people, the very places that uphold them, that allow them to continue existing both in the temporal and the eternal. Because as long as they've got temporal, they still have an eternal hope. But they war against the very things that could free them from the darkness they're in, and free them from the pride and the avarice and hubris thereof. Now, in every generation, there are those who are, for whatever reason, of that kind, that seed, that perspective. They care nothing for anything beyond what they think they're hiding in the darkness within themselves. And when they reach enough position in society where they can exercise power, they are brutal in that exercising of it. But a day is coming for all of them, as it always does, where they will be judged as they have judged. They will face the full weight of their injustices. So think about it. If that's the way it is with people, what about nations? Well, all of history is an example of that, and the rise and the fall of empires. You see, look, nothing's hidden. If you don't know, it's because, one, you've never looked, you never asked, or you don't care. But nothing's hidden from anybody. So why is it your world is what it is? Why is it your nation is a wreck? You know exactly why that is. Those of you who made it this way and you know what the penalty for that's going to be. Do you not? Because if you didn't, why are you weaponizing everything against the people as each one of you are exposed? Let's talk about D.C. Tell me why it is you want to militarize the Capitol and dramatize a half-baked, quarter-cocked, synthetic attempted coup, riot, whatever drama your drunken state of mind decides to call it. But what you're actually doing is you're actually making enemies of all the people. Now here's what you don't understand. This is no longer about the left or the right. This is no longer about politics. This is about right and wrong. This is about justice. Now, since you have power and you got what you wanted, right? Now you want to use more of what belongs to the nation and to the people to protect yourself from them. Now, what does that say about you? What does that say about what you think you are hiding in the darkness? You're only proving what the Founding Fathers said was the reason why we have checks and balances and the separation of powers. You're proving that. You're also proving the reason why it is that we have the Bill of Rights, why we have the right to bear arms. The right to bear arms was to actually prevent tyrannical, autocratic, insane, or corrupt, or corrupt individuals and groups from co-opting the government. Now, is that not what you both have done on both sides at one point or another? And not all of you, but those know who they are, and those that aren't like them know who they are. You know what you've turned that city into. And the nation. I told you all things were going to be tested here. I told you that all leaders were going to be tested last year, and that would continue. Now everything's being exposed. You're seeing it at every level. Public and private sector. You're seeing it. You're beginning to reap what you sowed. And the storm will get as severe and as destructive as it takes to bring you to humility or to your humiliation and destruction. It's up to you. When you don't want truth and you don't want authentic love, and you don't want the truth in love, what makes you think you can have justice and mercy when instead of humble and contrite hearts, you have arrogance and pride and malice and hatred? What makes you think that you will escape the consequences for that? What makes you think you can demand from others what you yourself are unwilling to do or give or example? What makes you think that you're worthy of being in a position of leadership when you have neither humility nor vision nor honesty nor a care for those whom you are to lead? What do you think your consequences will be? Oh, but you wanted those positions. You wanted the wealth. You wanted the power. You wanted the influence. And now you want control because you fear losing your whitewash and having to pay the consequences for your choices because you refuse to take responsibility for your actions. How long did you think you would be allowed to devour the people, mislead the people? You can look down on the people. God will judge everybody, and He'll judge them individually, and He will judge the entire nation collectively. What made you think you were immune? When you hate those that love you, and when you love those who hate you, you actually don't love anything. It's a distortion. What you love is a lie. When you call bitter sweet and sweet bitter, when you call truth lies and lies truth, when you call good evil and evil good, what do you think your consequences will be? You demand love, but you don't want love. You demand grace, but you refuse it. What do you think happens in those circumstances? Do you think you are terminally unique in this generation? Do you think because you have technology that you're somehow more evolved, more advanced? Because you're not. You are deceived. So what should be done with you? What should be done with a government that turns against its people and turns the people against them? What should be done with a business class that turns the people into products instead of selling them good products and services while removing their jobs and sending them to other nations? What should be done with a nation that destroys men and then refuses to raise them and then condemns those who are left for not being men? What should be done with a nation that cannot understand what the gender of their children are? What do you think your consequences will be? What about folks that claim to serve God and truth, yet chase after every counterfeit that smells like religion, looks like religion, sounds like religion, and never tests a damn thing? You know why you don't have the truth? Why you externalize everything? Is because you also don't care about the truth. The truth is not a book. It's a person. It's an identity. It is a spirit of light. It upholds everything. So for you, religious folks, consider this. If all your Bibles and religious texts disappeared overnight, the Word of God would not. It is eternal. If you think that you can confine God to words written on a page, then you really don't understand who He is, and you don't understand the words that you read. And for you, I pity you for that, because that means that you really don't want to know, or else you would ask Him. And because you don't ask Him, the only thing I can assume is, 1, you've never been taught that you could, or 2, you don't want to. You know, if I own a restaurant and I'm giving away free food to prevent people from dying from the lack of food, and I open the door and you refuse to come in and have a meal to save your own life, is that my fault? Or is it yours? Because you refuse the very thing you need to live. If it's offered to you for free, yet you'd rather pay for it, even though you have nothing to pay for it with, that's pride. Grace is not something that could be demanded. It could only be exampled. Tolerance is not to be demanded, it is to be exampled. And not all things are tolerable. Just ask the people who demand tolerance the most. They're some of the most intolerant people on the planet. And ask the people who demand grace from others when they dispense so little of it to their own brothers and sisters, friends and family. You see, the left-right paradigm is a lie. It is a mirage. It's a mutually beneficial, devouring system in a contractual agreement to lie and to accuse one another so that everybody can stay on the plantation of their pride. Do you know how I tire of doing these talks and getting to the point where I would love to be able to give an uplifting message, and encourage those that are down, but I'm still having to deal with all the people that are continuing to beat them down. It is the fool that provokes the peaceful. To war. It is the fool that stands in the face of justice and accuses. Now, a rebellious land with a rebellious people will not escape getting the iron rod. And here's the thing. It's what you choose. When you get it, it is what you choose. How I wish you would choose differently. But like I said, there's a time when you have provoked one too many times. You've mocked and abused and accused and slandered one too many times. And it triggers the cascade effects that will ultimately lead to your ass kicking. And once again, you'll blame everybody else because you won't take responsibility for your own actions. Now, I see it all over your culture. I see it all over your elite. I see it all over your citizens. I see it in your businesses. I see it in your educational institutions and in the halls of your government. Why do you think I see these things? It's sure as heck not what I want to look at every day. But I'm going to make you see you. Just like you forced everybody else to accept your lies, your projections. Well, now the mirrors are going to start showing you you. Do you know how foolish you look arguing on every television station on everything, every single cycle of every event that triggers this country on either side? Do you know how foolish you look? Do you know what that is a sign of? A nation about to be obliterated. An elite class about to be devastated and beaten down by their own pride, by their own decisions, by their own foolishness and folly. You are a people in darkness. You are a nation in peril, and you are spinning up a whirlwind that will not allow you to escape it unscathed. Do you not understand this? You are in a unsustainable paradigm. There are a lot of amazing people in this country. If they didn't have self-discipline and grace, if they weren't God-fearing people, truly God-fearing people, not just giving it lip service. If they didn't try to treat others the way they'd like to be treated, to love their neighbors as themselves, if they were not like that, there's a whole hell of a lot of you that'd already be dead and burning in Hades right now. Because what I observe and the arrogance that you spew out every day, the idiocy I see every single day, and the lack of understanding and vision that I see every day, as one side points to the other side and the other side points to the other side, and you try to bleed away the people that are trying to stand in the middle ground. Well, here's the truth of the matter. You're either going to come here willingly or you're going to have hooks put in your noses and you're going to be drugged here. Like a dumb beast. There is a time for everything under the sun, including your own consequences. Now, God knows I love this country. How else could I be this utterly disgusted and frustrated with it? But like Chief Seattle wrote a long time ago, son, never worship your wife. For the moment that you worship your wife, the less of a man you become and the less of a woman you've made her. And you corrupt your love. Well, let me tell you something. I love this country. I will not worship this country. And I will not turn a blind eye to the whoredom that I see in it on a daily basis. That's forced upon the rest of us. Now, if you want to play Sodom and Gomorrah and go the way of Mystery Babylon and keep this up, it's exactly what I told you. You'll never win another war. You will never ever repair your economy. And you will never survive as a nation. You will be removed from the nations. Not just from leading the nations. You will be removed from the table of nations. No nation that has been ever thought they would be. You see, that's how deception works. And it usually thickens the most right before it happens. What happens? The consequences. Now, those of you that are still licking your wounds and upset over what happened to President Trump, let me tell you something. You did him a great disservice. If you really loved the president and wanted to support him, then maybe you should have taken a little time to stop following the very people that were gaming your asses and deceiving you. Because life is not a giant Agatha Christie novel, okay? Every day is not a Murder, She Wrote episode. At some point, you have to grow up and learn some discernment. And when you're following everything under the sun anybody puts out to you, and you don't have discernment as to what is what, not only are you made into a fool by appearances, but you begin to act like a fool by your actions. That's why he's no longer in the White House. Regardless of what you think about the election. And regardless about what I think about it. The truth of the matter is he could have won 80% of the vote. But the perception of you being fools played right into the hands of those that didn't want him there. So congratulations. While you're pointing out those that stole the election and did evil all over this country. Point the rest of them back at yourself for following a bunch of foolishness. You know, justice starts with your own house. If you can't take responsibility for your own actions, you're no different than the people that you're trying to remove on the other side. And I tell you that because I love you. But if I'm going to put the smackdown on the left, it isn't like I'm going to leave you unscathed. I've got a long list of stuff. If I were to go through my list on both of you, we'd be here for the next month. 24 hours a day with me going through just the lists I have. But if you're not willing to listen to understand and test things, I have to assume that you actually don't care about truth, or you're not awake. And you clearly don't understand what that means, because you're pretty naked. You were told not to be caught asleep. So, there's plenty of blame and idiocy to go around in this festival of madness that you guys have stirred up. I love you, but I can tell you what, there's hell to pay. That's why I keep telling you, all will be humbled or humiliated. It is up to you. Don't come to me, because I'm sick of hearing it from both sides. We have terrible leaders. We don't have any leaders. No, you don't want leaders, because all of you are grand imperial, thrones within your own minds that you sit on and a reflection of yourselves. You have exactly what you chose. Funny. That's exactly what happened to the Israelites. They didn't want God to rule them directly. So God gave them judges. You know who the first judge was? It happens to be what my first name means. It's Othniel. Othniel, which is Hebrew for Otis, which is in Latin, means Lion of God. Tribe of Judah. And Othniel was raised up by God as the first judge. And guess what? I'll be doggone, like I said in my talks a couple of nights ago. Same conditions, except we're on a larger scale that the Israelites were dealing with when they could they couldn't find anybody to actually lead them. They all had leaders, but they were fighting amongst themselves so much that they couldn't fight off their enemies. You see, you actually have leaders that are good leaders, but you won't listen to them, and you don't want them. I mean, when I look and I see people carrying signs in this country on the left, we are ungovernable, we will become ungovernable. Well, what you'll become is getting your ass kicked. Because if you want lawlessness, you're going to get the rod. And I guarantee you, you're not going to like what that feels like, because it isn't going to be nice, and it isn't going to be police officers and National Guards troops, National Guardsmen, bending a knee or dancing with you in the streets when that happens. They're going to beat the living shit out of you. That's what happens when you choose a police state, which is what lawlessness ultimately brings. It's that or chaos. Right? I've seen all of this in history. That is the direction you're going. You are working against your best interests, and that is a fool's errand. So why should the people that aren't pay the price because of you choosing what you choose? You demand grace, they give you grace, and they have to pay the price for you choosing a lie and living like a lawless fool or a brainless idiot. So when justice comes, it's going to be rendered in full portion to you because you have acted unjustly while demanding justice. Well, you're going to get exactly the justice that you deserve, regardless of where you are on the political spectrum or up the social, economic, caste system that you've built and prostituted your system into. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Do you not understand what is happening to you? Do you not comprehend what time it is? You know, I really hope at some point in my life before I leave this insane asylum that you've become, I get the opportunity to do something to bring people together, to solve problems, which is what I was born to do. I'm designed to do. Instead of being a witness at a board hearing or whether you should be institutionalized for your mental illnesses. It sickens me. It saddens me. It thoroughly frustrates me. And but for the grace of God, I probably would lead a revolution against you myself, or a war of a coalition of willing partners to fight you myself, simply because of your foolishness and how it affects others. And who knows? If you keep doing this stuff, you might find out I'm a hell of a lot more of a warrior than you might think, and a lot more experience behind me than you have any idea. And that's a war you're going to lose. You don't realize that right now you're already being paraded by your own folly and foolishness through the streets. You are. So, maybe tomorrow night I'll get a chance to pull out the power of positive thinking, and we can all do some positive affirmations and pick our evening up. But as it is right now, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I'd love to. I'd love to actually turn the mic on and talk about how to fix stuff. But you know what? Can't do it. Not until you guys get it together. And I don't know what that's going to take. It's probably going to take a lot of hardship, a lot more than what you went through with COVID, and it's probably going to mean a lot of you won't be here anymore. I don't wish that upon you, but history is what history is. And as long as you guys keep going down, going down the crazy pipe. You know, you're going to come out the other end and, you know, at the sewage plant, and you're going to have some treatment. Because I can tell you what I see smells like shit. You act like shit. You act like spoiled brats. You act like addicts. You act like you have no concept of right or wrong. You're acting like a third world nation. Actually, you're worse than that. At least in third world nations, they have a respect for certain things that you completely don't even give a damn about. And that saddens me too. It saddens me for all the people here in America that aren't like you, that have to put up with this stuff, and they keep their mouths shut. Well, no more. And what you got to realize is because of what you guys have done in the leadership of this country in the public and private sectors, you've lost credibility. And everything you do from here on out will only hurt it more. Because you have lost your authority to rule. That happens when you're unjust. It happens when you're corrupt. It happens when you do what's right in your own eyes. So, I guess we know what seed some of you guys are. And that means, at least I know, who and what you really are. So I won't ask that again. But you should ask yourself why I continue to say, again, as it is for people, so too it is for the nation and the nations. Good night.